All right, welcome back. Marbury versus Madison. All right, so the context for this case is the design of the judicial branch protects the Supreme Court's independence as a branch of government, and here's the actual important part for this case, and the emergence and use of judicial review remains a powerful judicial practice. All right, so this is kind of our OG case, 1803. Supreme Court wasn't very important or influential before this case, but has become much more powerful since it. So the facts of this case. William Marbury was appointed as a justice of the peace in the District of Columbia by John Adams, but he didn't receive his commission before Adams left office. So he petitioned the Supreme Court to compel the new Secretary of State, James Madison, under Thomas Jefferson, to deliver his commission. In other words, this was a job that the president had the power to nominate and the Senate could confirm. Adams did so. This is part of the midnight justices, or midnight judges. And so this is one who he just didn't get delivered his job at that point. And so he wanted the next Secretary of State to give him his commission, meaning to officially give him the job that Adams had appointed him to. Two issues. Can a federal judge sue for his appointment to the court? And does the Supreme Court have the authority to order the delivery of the commissions? So first of all, is he even allowed to sue to get the court to say, hey, tell Madison to appoint this guy to his job? And then if he can sue, does the Supreme Court have the authority to actually force James Madison to deliver the commissions? These questions might not sound that difficult, but remember, this is Madison and Jefferson were very much in favor at this point of a very weak Supreme Court. They didn't want to give Marbury this job. He was a Federalist. They were Republicans. They didn't want to cooperate. And the Supreme Court Chief Justice here, John Marshall, is very aware of the fact that there's nothing he can actually do to make Madison give him this job. He can say, oh, you are compelled and you must deliver the commission. But what if Madison then says, okay, so what, and doesn't do it? The Supreme Court is going to be greatly and perhaps irreparably harmed and damaged in its power. So he's going to try to avoid that at all costs. So we have a very creative solution here that Marshall comes up with, because he didn't want it to look like he was playing favorites and helping Marbury because he was a Federalist. He didn't want Madison to ignore the Supreme Court and make it look weak. So he says Marbury was entitled to his commission, meaning his job. However, the court was unable to grant it because the relevant portion of the Judiciary Act of 1789 conflicted with the Constitution and was therefore null and void. In other words, yes, you should be able to get that job, and if Madison gives you that job, he should do it, but I'm not going to tell him he needs to. However, the court couldn't tell you, and court couldn't tell Madison he had to do that because the law, Judiciary Act of 1789, that gave the Supreme Court that power, he says, is unconstitutional. So the impact is what's really important for this case. It established judicial review, which is the power to declare a law unconstitutional. The Supreme Court had never done this before, and this was not written in the Constitution. So he takes the court from a position of weakness, where it was at the start of this case, and comes up with a creative solution that not only allows it to maintain whatever power it had, but actually to greatly strengthen the judiciary. Because now the Supreme Court has, for the first time, formally ruled a law unconstitutional, and it will continue to do so for the next 200 plus years down to this day, and it continues to do so. Constitutional principle to support the decision: Congress could not pass legislation that supersedes the Constitution because the Supremacy Clause places the Constitution above laws. So if a law passed by Congress goes against the Constitution, it must be unconstitutional. From the majority opinion, again, this is a unanimous decision, says that it is emphatically the province and duty of the Judicial Department to say what the law is. So that's their job, to interpret the law. And then it says if two laws conflict with each other, the courts must decide on the operation of each, meaning which law is legal and which one is not going to be legal. So if a law be in opposition to the Constitution, so we have a law that says one thing, we have the Constitution that says something else, drop down to the bottom, the court must determine which of these conflicting rules governs the case. He says that this is the very essence of judicial duty. So, in other words, this is the Supreme Court's job. If Congress does something that the Constitution doesn't allow for, they must be there to stop that from happening. They are making themselves guardians of the Constitution. So they are there to make sure, because essentially, if they don't do this task, if they don't stop Congress from passing laws that go against the Constitution, well, then why do we even have a Constitution? So he is here establishing and defending the principle of judicial review. All right, subscribe, hit that like button for me. This has been a The Money Production.